It is a big idea, a new world order.
Your world is not what it seems. Ansary, outside the box.
It's March 12th, 2009. I'm your host, Ansary, with you live for the next hour as we go through a number of headlines, things of that nature, information that you need, news that's vital to your survival in this new millennium that we're now in. The first part of the program, we're going to have a guest on for about 20-25 minutes. Our subject is September 11th, 2001. We will be reviewing that day and examining its significance in our lives today in this never-ending war on terror. Our guest's name is Paul Zaremka. He is the author of The Hidden History of 9/11. Before we get to Paul, there is an announcement I'd like to make. Now, this Sunday, on the 15th day of March, at 1 p.m., there's going to be a massive demonstration down at the state capitol, not only protesting the 6th anniversary of the invasion of Iraq, but also protesting the deployment of Oregon National Guard soldiers to Iraq and Afghanistan. And so there's going to be a lot of people down there. If somebody watching this show right now would like to carpool with me or vice versa, go down with the camera, interview some people, see where they are on the issues, and also do some protesting of our own, contact me over at my email, alex_ansary@hotmail.com. Tonight we're going to be talking about the recent situation between the Chinese and the United States, the little situation that happened in the South China Sea, very tense situation. We'll also be talking about how numerous activists are being put on a list here in the United States, certain people that support Ron Paul, Chuck Baldwin, Bob Barr, people like that. If you look at some of these secret police state memos that are being handed around in places like the state of Missouri, you can see how people that question the Federal Reserve, the economic decisions being made, the government as a whole, are being subjugated to harassment and screening. And so there's basically a memo that's been, it's not classified, but it's, you know, for police eyes only. And it was released recently upon the web, and so we have a full 8 pages documentation showing that peaceful protesters, people that are tax protesters, people that talk about the New World Order are being targeted and being likened to white supremacists. So we'll be talking about those issues and many more on this March 12th live broadcast edition of Outside the Box. Our guest tonight is going to be in Portland. In the very near future, is going to be here on the 14th day of March, 2009, speaking at Laughing Horse Books at 2 p.m. The lecture is entitled The Flights of 9/11 and Profiting from Advanced Knowledge. The talk will center on an in-depth discussion of the flights of the planes on 9/11, revealing many items which have escaped much public notice. It also discusses the evidence for insider trading. This lecture will, in put options before 9/11, an issue which has had considerable attention in the financial press for a month after 9/11. Then, of course, the story was dropped like a hot potato. Here's a little bit of information about our guest tonight, who's actually en route to Oregon right now. He's actually on an Amtrak train, I believe, in Napa Valley at the moment. Paul received his PhD in economics from the University of Wisconsin. He's a professor of economics today at the State University of Buffalo, New York. Editor since 1977 of Research in Political Economy, this series of 24 annual volumes addresses economic and political issues from the perspective of the social classes involved. He's the author of Toward a Theory of Economic Development and editor of Frontiers in Econometrics. He is the co-author of Essays in Modern Capital Theory, and he's been a senior researcher at the International Labor Organization in Geneva, Switzerland, and he also lectures in Poland. He is the union president on his campus and is currently its grievance officer for academics. The Hidden History of 9/11, his scholarly publication, first appeared in 2006 as part of the Research in Political Economy series. Paul, are you with us? Oh, he hasn't? Well, if you could, Bill, run in here as soon as you can and hit redial on the cell phone. We've guys been through this before. And what I want you to do is, I want you to hit send. Here, I'm ringing it now. Bill, just come on over as soon as you can. I'm hitting send and tell him to call our studio number, and then we'll have him online. Now, he did say he may be dropped. The connection may be dropping because he's on a cell phone. This is what he told me about 10 minutes ago. So he may have lost transmission. But I want you to know about that particular speaking engagement he'll be involved in. That will be the 14th day of March, 2009, 2 p.m., Laughing Horse Books, and the cost is free. I also want to let you know you can hear me daily, Monday through Friday, at oraclebroadcasting.com. Or you can just go over to alexansary.com and listen to the player on the left-hand side of the screen. Before I dig into that story with China, I want to mention a couple other things. We have been facing some economic difficulties here at Portland Community Media, and what the future actually is going to hold for us, I really don't know, but I don't foresee a bright future ahead in light of what's taking place economically. Beginning in April, we will not be able to get inside this building until 5 o'clock in the evening. Usually the doors are open at 2. They're scaling back the hours during the week, but they're already closed Monday and Tuesday, so it's going to just continue to further cramp our style, so to speak. We used to have something called senior producer status here at PCM, where long-term producers could come in earlier to work on their projects. That has been eliminated from PCM. And so just letting you know, we are monitoring the economic situation here at PCM, and that is one of the recent announcements that has come down the wire. So, Bill, do we have our guest? Hey, Paul, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Well, glad to have you with us. We went over your bio. We understand you're coming here to Portland, and I thank you for coming here, even though you're en route to Portland on an Amtrak train in Napa Valley. So we're glad to have you with us.
Right.
Where would you like to start in telling the audience about what you're going to be talking about this Saturday?
Well, the two things I'm going to be emphasizing most is what actually happened in terms of those planes that crashed into two towers into Pennsylvania and to the Pentagon on 9/11. And I'm also going to be talking about insider trading and put options that happened before 9/11. I can explain that a bit more if you would like it.
Let's get the brief rundown on the insider trading, the put options, a story that I was following quite a bit a couple of years ago when we were talking about 9/11 more actively.
Right. Okay, so would you like me to discuss it a bit more?
Yeah, go ahead and go into that. Insider trading, you're talking about people knowing about something ahead of time and therefore profiting from what happened afterwards, the decline in stock, correct?
Right. Setting themselves up for making a profit when they know that the event that they anticipate is actually going to occur. So in the case of put options, which is some people are not familiar with, but a put option is the option to sell a stock in the future at a specific price. For example, a price of $30. The shares on American Airlines and United Airlines were selling at about $30 in the days before 9/11. So if you put a put option on those stocks before 9/11 at, let's say, $30 for the next month or two, and you knew that something catastrophic was going to happen to drive down the share prices, which in fact did happen to $17, then you're going to make a very nice profit on selling stocks that you could simultaneously, you buy the stocks and then you sell them immediately at $30.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the operation. Now, right after 9/11, there was a lot of financial coverage about that possibility. I think what was happening is that people in the financial world was thinking that we could pinpoint and name Osama bin Laden as behind those put option trades. And so they got all excited about this way of finding basically a smoking gun. Suddenly the story dried up. And I think it dried up because they somehow were told you don't want to go there, that this story isn't going to lead to Osama bin Laden. So that basically ended the story until the 9/11 Commission came out, and they provided like one one sentence and one long footnote to sort of explain it away, and that was it. But there's been some serious academic studies that have been done since then, one by a professor at the University of Illinois who has access to confidential data, and basically, I mean, it's a long story, but the end result is that is a 99% probability that it was indeed insider information that was used to decide to purchase those put options.
Mm-hmm.
Is that good enough?
In addition to that particular issue, I know you're going to be talking about a lot of stuff, and it's rough, obviously, doing a summary of 9/11 in 15 minutes for both you and I, because there's so much to get into. But this is more the reason why people should come see you Saturday at 2 o'clock at Laughing Horse, especially when you're not charging an arm and a leg. And so, other issues you're going to talk about. Let's talk about the hijackers. I know you get into the whole issue of how the BBC reported after the fact there were a couple of hijackers that were found alive. And in a little bit after you respond, we're going to show that video from your confrontation with Philip Zelikow, head of the 9/11 Commission report.
Yeah, but it wasn't a couple of hijackers. It was 10 of the hijackers.
It's a big number.
10 of the 19 hijackers somewhere in the world were reported as being alive. In other words, they stood up and said, I'm one of those people you're naming. I went to the same school, I'm working at the same company, or somehow the identification was not just an issue that there was a name confusion. It was clearly who these people were, and they raised their hands and said, I'm alive, why are you naming me as a hijacker? And that was reported in BBC, LA Times, The Guardian, or maybe it was The Independent in the UK, a Saudi Arabian newspaper. And the 9/11 Commission didn't interrogate in any way whatsoever. They didn't even try to prove that the names that they provided to the public are the correct names. It's an outrage, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Before we go to that video, Paul, what other issues do you want to let people know about that you're going to be getting into in this lecture coming up Saturday?
Well, another important issue is the question about how the planes went into the towers. Were they actually guided into the towers by alleged hijackers or by some kind of human activity, or whether they might have been controlled somehow electronically, which is it's very well documented that the airlines are quite capable of doing that. I can't prove what happened on that day, but I'm going to talk about that issue of how did the planes get to where they were, and did they, in fact, for example, did the plane that supposedly went into the Pentagon, is that evidence clear or not? Mm-hmm. So that's another thing I'm going to be talking about. I'm also going to be, I hope to be mentioning, at least to some extent, the collapse of the 3 towers, not 2 towers, in the World Trade Center. Most people have been exposed to the 2 towers, but there's quite a few people that don't know that a 3rd tower, namely World Trade Center 7, also fell down that day, and all 3 towers went down at more or less the free fall speed. In other words, the speed that physics would tell you would fall if it had no obstruction below it, so no resistance from lower floors.
Okay, let's briefly play that video. We'll be back in about 3 minutes and continue our discussion with Paul Zaremka, who is the author of the scholarly publication, The Hidden History of 9/11. Stay with us.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what the 9/11 Commission didn't deal with any of the hijackers except to name them, but never addressed the question that up to 11 of them were alive after 9/11, reported by BBC, The Independent, LA Times, and stuff like that. Why didn't you interrogate all that issue of hijackers being alive after 9/11?
We actually looked into those allegations, and I think if you actually dig into the underlying data underneath the citations you've heard about, there's no there. The hijackers did not survive those plane crashes. And we know a lot about the hijackers. We've actually, there's quite a bit about them in the report. not only did we have a lot of information about them from the people who were alive and captured,
wrong instrumental,
which we quote in the
and then I'll tell you when to fade.
the Saudi government and others actually talked to their families. And believe me, none of their families have heard from them since 9/11. And none of their families think they're alive.
You take a picture.
You may have better information than we did, but I think our information is pretty good.
Well, anyway, you didn't report any of it. That's the bottom line. You didn't interrogate that issue. That's the key issue. You just took the list that was publicized, and basically the whole world is changing on the basis of your statement that 19 people did this operation. And if it's false, okay, that has major implications for how the world should be going forward. If you follow what I'm saying. I mean,
yeah, sure. I mean, if the 9/11 attacks were carried out by something other than the hijackers, and there's a whole alternative universe in which the attacks are occurred in a completely different way, yeah. If we lived in a parallel universe, that would be a very different universe. There's, in our view, not a lot of evidence that that universe is actually connected to this one.
Commission report, but you didn't at all.
No, there are actually about 2,000 allegations of this kind, of which we saw a lot, and we did try to knock down we took on a few of the most important ones in the report. But there are so many incredible allegations of this kind that it would have taken us hundreds of pages in the report, which is already a pretty long report, to say, and here's why that's bogus, here's why that's bogus, here's why that's bogus. And we could have gone on like that for a long time.
It's okay.
Mr. Zelikow.
That's okay.
Why wasn't Building 7? Why wasn't Building 7 part of your report? Why didn't 6.5 seconds, apparent controlled demolition? Why didn't the commission mention even and investigate especially Building 7's 6.5 second, 47-story building?
Because there is an enormous engineering study that's by the National Institute for Standards and Technology that was actually done on the collapse of the World Trade Center and the engineering aspects of the attack. But we don't actually believe that there is the kind of controlled demolition scenario that you hypothesize.
Now, here we're going to show you a videotape of the collapse itself.
Describe that.
Now we go to videotape, the collapse of this building.
It's amazing.
Amazing, incredible, pick your word. For the third time today. It's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much.
There, and you know, there's a lot of people out there that have been confronting people that are involved in the cover-up of 9/11 that have been confronted by young people, people that are scholars involved at the university level, people of all different demographic types, whatever word you want to use. So we're going to get into later on how they're demonizing 9/11 truthers and trying to link them to white supremacist groups, things of that nature. Can you speak to some of the persecution you have gone through in your life as a result of what you're talking about?
You're asking me if I've faced persecution?
Well, what have you gone through as a person that's involved in academia as a result of some of these controversial views on September 11th?
Okay, I will tell you that, frankly, I have not experienced a problem. And I think one reason why I haven't experienced a problem is that I've been heavily involved in union activity on campus. I've been a union officer, and so I've have a strong presence on campus for a long time and working with many issues. And I think they just felt it wasn't worth causing me trouble. It would cause them more trouble to cause me trouble than to let me do what I'm doing.
Well, I'm glad you're going to be here coming up on Saturday, 2 o'clock, Laughing Horse Books. I want people to check that out, and there's information at the Portland 9/11 Truth website as well. Before I let you go, Paul, anything else you want to mention pertaining to 9/11 or the world right now and what's going on with what are called the economic 9/11s?
Yeah, that's another big topic. But let me say, I mean, I didn't mention I will be trying to show the outline of the book. So, for example, so people are aware of the war games that were all scheduled on the same day to divert attention away by air traffic controllers of what was going on in that day. I think that's a really important topic. We could talk a lot about the demolitions of the towers, and all three towers, and what happened on the Pentagon. We could interrogate the issues about why this occurred in the first place and Islamophobia. There's many issues but we just won't be able to talk about all of them on Saturday. But we'll do our best.
Well, glad you're coming. Well, thank you, sir, for being here. And we wish you the best of luck. I hope people go and check out that lecture. Enjoy the Northwest while you're here. Hopefully we'll have a sun break for you. It's been kind of crazy.
Thank you very much for having me on your show.
You're welcome, Paul. All right, we're going to get that next video ready, Bill, in just a minute. And there's a lot going on, but let me be brief. And I want to speak to that last caller, the caller from last week, when she was asking for solutions. And I could have been a little bit more patient with her in my response. But we have to find these solutions independently. And in many cases, many cases, we have to look in the mirror. And so there's a lot of information here in the city. Let's take advantage of the information that we have. There's lots of groups. We don't all agree, but we need to find a way to agree to cooperatively change the world and make it a world that we want, not something that's being cookie-cuttered out, something that's a blueprint that's been constructed by the global elite, under the guise of change, under the guise of hope. So we have to be active participants in this revolution in consciousness. Now, there's so much I'd like to speak about on that particular issue. This has been a very intense week. We're going to talk about China at this point. And there's a lot of chest pounding going on right now. Some of you know my concerns about the future. I pretty much spelled them out. Manufactured economic crash, and then a manufactured clash of the super states, i.e. United States, China, and Russia. Can it be prevented? I don't know. How much are some of these world leaders working together to create a third world war, to possibly depopulate parts of the planet? I don't know. But I'm very suspicious about the many secret meetings with these world leaders that most of us don't know about, and of course the sharing of high-grade future weapon technologies. So all that stuff's going on behind closed doors, but what we're seeing here on the surface level is the breakdown of the U.S. military and economic system and the rise of the Eastern New World Order system. Russia and China are engaged in war game drills. We have war game drills off the coast of Oregon. They're preparing for a simulated an attack. They're simulating war game drills, preparing for an attack in the future, which won't be Al-Qaeda or Islamofascism. It's going to be something big time, hardcore, on the likes of a Chinese-Russian invasion. So we actually are kind of looking at a red dawn in slow motion. And this situation here took place not locally, though, or near the U.S., but near the South China Sea. I want you to hear about this. China demands end of U.S. naval surveillance. China's defense ministry has demanded that the U.S. Navy end surveillance missions off the country's southern coast following a weekend confrontation between an American vessel and Chinese ships. This happened this week, and it is significant. The foreign ministry said that the unarmed U.S. ship was operating illegally inside China's exclusive economic zone. Then it was challenged by 5 Chinese ships, well, specifically 3 Chinese government ships and 2 Chinese flagged trawlers. Neither side yielded in their conflicting version of events. It's another case of he said, she said, similar to what we saw between the United States and Russia during the situation in Georgia on 8/8/8. The United States says that the Navy mapping ship USNS Impeccable, it's called the Impeccable, was operating legally in international waters when it was harassed by Chinese boats. The Chinese came within 25 feet of this surveillance vessel. At that point, the surveillance vessel, the Impeccable, blasted water through multiple hoses at the Chinese, which reacted by stripping down to their underwear. And people are laughing about this, going, why did they strip down to their underwear? And it's not really clear, but I don't really think it's funny because I don't think that they did that for nothing. It's likely they were perhaps going to change into some scuba gear, jump down, and maybe put some explosive device up the rear end of the Navy ship. I mean, lots of things are possible in the situation. I don't think it's a funny situation. I think we need to be aware of it, and a lot of other things that I have prepared for you tonight. So don't be afraid, don't be scared, but be informed. Be prepared. in every way that you can, psychologically, physically, and of course, spiritually. Because no matter what happens on the planet here, folks, in this five-sense reality, in this third-dimensional reality, we've got to learn and cultivate the ability to be free on the inside. No matter what happens, we can't turn around. We can only go forward in the future. But it's all a matter of what path we're on. If we can't control the world out there or save it, how do we control our own world or make our own world a peaceful place? In the image of what we really want deep inside our own hearts. Now, looking at this situation here, this is the third or fourth to take place in a single weekend and follows a story about the United States shooting out a Russian satellite. Now there are more stories about debris falling from space as a result of that collision. At this time, Bill, we're going to play that MSNBC report so you get the mainstream's take on it, and then we'll come back and talk about the next phase of this. We are engaged right now, just started Monday, in major combat operations, war game drills in South Korea. North Korea is on red alert, and they are allied with who? The Chinese. Folks, we will be back in a few. Stay with us.
As 5 Chinese ships swarmed dangerously close to an unarmed U.S. Navy ship. The Pentagon says it was harassment, and it's part of an increasingly aggressive pattern of behavior on the part of the Chinese. NBC's Jim Miklashevsky is live at the Pentagon. Been reporting on this since this broke in the earlier hours. So, Jim, give us a play-by-play of what happened and more about this happening in the past, apparently.
Yes, absolutely. You know, the U.S. Navy ship Impeccable was operating in the South China Sea, conducting what it calls routine surveillance mission. They were dragging a sonar buoy behind the ship, actually trolling for Chinese submarines to keep track of those submarines' movement. The Chinese have never liked that activity. So yesterday, 5 Chinese ships, 3 military and 2 fishing trawlers, apparently, surrounded the Impeccable first, and then at one point, 2 of the trawlers positioned themselves and stopped directly in front of the Impeccable, and as one Navy official put it, they came damn close to colliding. One of the ships also maneuvered behind the Impeccable, tried to use a grappling hook to snag the tow line on the sonar buoy, and finally, we're told, the Impeccable, after trying to make bridge-to-bridge radio communications and failing, had to resort to defensive measures of its own. Since it's an unarmed ship, they deployed fire hoses and actually sprayed one of the trawlers alongside the ship 25 feet away, at which point the crew aboard that ship, the Chinese, disrobed down to their underwear. And now, all of this sounds a little bizarre and even somewhat comical, but U.S. Navy and Pentagon officials stress that this was extremely provocative, reckless, careless, and dangerous, and we expect to hear some kind of final protest later today.
All right, Jim, thank you very much for the update there.
Okay, you bet.
Actually, a viewer just called in and said he heard something about maybe the Chinese were showing disrespect, getting ready to moon the Impeccable. And so we will get more information on this in the future. Now, moving on, the war game drills. South Korea, big-time stuff. The U.S. and South Korea began annual war game drills this week, involving tens of thousands of troops, prompting North Korea to call its military into full combat readiness. CNET views the joint land and sea exercises as a prelude to an invasion. The exercise is going to be larger in scale and duration than in previous years. You're looking at 26,000 U.S. servicemen involved, and it's also involved several U.S. destroyers. The hostilities raised tensions on the Korean peninsula to their highest points in weeks. And the U.S. and its allies anxiously awaited North Korea's test launch of its most advanced long-range missile. North Korean officials said late last week that the isolationist nation could not guarantee the safety of South Korean passenger jets flying near its airspace during the 12-day exercises. South Korea today or recently expressed regret over the suspension of what it called a crucial channel of contact. North Korean officials have said they are planning to launch a communications satellite, and today threatened they would view any outside interference as an act of war. North Korea has the world's 5th largest military, with its armed forces estimated to be more than 1 million. You need to get food. You need to have access to clean water. You need a water filter. The solutions are internal, they're individual, they're personal. In some cases, they're collective. That's another reason why I'm trying to get a meeting started in Portland, a place where I do the show live. And after the show, we talk about stuff. So if you know of a place where we can continue this dialogue in person, we need to begin to do those things now. If you have a place in the southeast Portland, Oregon area, or know of a place in or around downtown, we need to do this, but it has to be somewhat reachable to other Portlanders that may be on the bus. So I had an offer for a place out in Clackamas, but it's too far for people that would have to commute by TriMet. So we need something in the inner southeast area, and we need to find it soon. We now need to talk about the waves of shootings that we saw between 3/10 and 3/11. A little bit of info on 3/11. It's a date that's significant. A lot of people question 9/11, but a lot of people also question the Madrid attacks of 3/11, 2004. And there were 911 days, by the way, in case you didn't know that, between 9/11/01 and 3/11/04. Come 3/11/09, we have 2 shootings, massive ones, within 24 hours, and of course a situation in Northern Ireland, which is where we'll begin. Now this is interesting. This is from the Times Online. It's just information. Security guards stood down as terrorists killed Northern Ireland soldiers. Armed security guards employed to protect the military base in Northern Ireland, where 2 soldiers were shot dead, did not open fire on the terrorists, even when they stood over the injured men and fired further shots. So they're going IRA, terrorism, we need to look at banning guns, things of that nature. You're seeing this also throughout Europe. And we have a lot of Obama legislation out there that would disarm us collectively as a nation or change the Second Amendment as we know it. So it's interesting timing. Now let's talk about Alabama. The guy snaps, starts driving all around town, shooting people, even killed a sergeant's, police officers, wife and child. He also started the rampage by murdering his family. Police have now identified the man behind Tuesday's deadly South Alabama shooting spree. I mean, he was running over women, he was hitting people, coming out of gas stations. It was bad. The death toll now stands at 11, including the gunmen. After that, what did the Army do? They put troops, this is interesting, crime goes up, people snap, they put troops on the streets. Again, not under the guise of law enforcement, though, but of support operations. So this is Alabama. Now let's go to Germany. German gunman, child, shot by police after massacre. He killed at least 15 people. Some reports cite 17 people. Witnesses described a young man wearing black combat gear storming the school at 10 a.m. Without word, he opened fire in corridors and rooms. Interesting facts here in this particular report. He killed all women, all girls as well. It's another little detail. And so many things are going to be coming up in terms of banning guns, but less conversation about effect on video games, effect of serotonin re-inhibitor antidepressants, and they're part of the common theme that we find here with so many school shootings, that common denominator, that thing that's a part of the profile, but a fact that they omit conveniently. So after attacks, Europe is hurrying to tighten gun laws, and it seems in many, many ways that things are happening right on cue. Now, I want to talk about the whole civil unrest thing. I want to give you some updates on what's going on, the martial law preparations, some of the things that are taking place, and ways that activists are being targeted now in the United States of America. And I want you not to react to this information with fear, but understand they're afraid of something. They're afraid of us waking up. Stalin had said, you know what, you got to defeat people and their ideas. It's not about the guns, it's about we wouldn't let people have guns. Why would we let them have ideas? I'm paraphrasing here something that Stalin has said, and in a recent article I quoted him. We want to let the people have guns, why would we let them have ideas? And the interesting thing about ideas and thinking is at a time where our idea is supposed to come about and become a part of our lives, this quest for freedom, this idea that we can live a different way, this idea that, hey, we need a new constitutional republic that's different than this tyrannical form of government that's run by the banks. So this idea is something whose time has come. And a standing army can't hold down an idea that's organic in nature. When this truly is a revolution in consciousness, and people are going to continue to wake up by the droves as the New World Order continues to turn up the heat. And so we're looking now at people like Chuck Norris, despite what I think about him, claiming thousands of right-wing cell groups exist and will rebel against the government. It's difficult to say whether he's speaking in a favorable way about this or a not so favorable manner, but this is in the news. The call by some right-wing leaders for rebellion and for the military to refuse the commander-in-chief's orders is joined by Chuck Norris, who claims that thousands of right-wing cell groups have organized and are ready for the second American Revolution. But we have to stop putting things in these brackets, right-wing revolution or left-wing revolution. There's a people's revolution that's beginning to brew here, and these labels, using words like cell and militia and things like that, distract from what this is really all about, a love of life, a love of humanity, a love of each other, and knowing that our time has come. It is time for us to see freedom, and I want to see freedom in my lifetime. So we have to be aware that the media continues to marginalize things in a certain direction, but it's for a reason, and we'll get to that in a few. We will definitely get to that. The terror watch list, we have talked about that in the past. It's now hit 1 million. This is all intimidation. If you talk about this stuff, you'll be on the terror watch list, and Mr. Emanuel, Obama's chief of staff, says if you're on the terror watch list, you can't own a gun. Things are making more and more sense every day. So this number is up 32% since 2007. People put on the list by intelligence and law enforcement agencies can be blocked from flying, stopped at borders, or subjected to other scrutiny. This next report cannot go unnoticed, undiscussed. Here's the headline: Secret State Police report. It's now been revealed that Ron Paul, Bob Barr, Chuck Baldwin, and other libertarians are considered terrorists in the state of Missouri. Now, this was leaked to Alex Jones by a cop that listens to the show. He came across some documents linking these groups to terrorism, saying that they should be monitored. Be aware of the bumper stickers on their car. So, Bill, there's 8 slides there. We'll just go through them each in turn. If you look up Secret State Police report in Missouri, you're going to be able to print this out, blow it up, and at the very end of this report that they released, the 8-page report, it's not classified, but it says for law enforcement eyes only. You'll see that on page 1. On the last page, you get a phone number to the office that put this together. So I'm sure they're being flooded with calls right now. If you want to be a part of that, flooding them with phone calls, you can do that by Googling the report and writing down that number. This report was distributed by the Missouri Information Analysis Center, the MIAC, which we will be referring to it from here on out, entitled The Modern Militia Movement, and it was dated February 20th, 2009. A footer on the document indicates that it's unclassified but law enforcement sensitive, in other words, not for public consumption. It notes many of the political issues cited by the so-called Patriot Movement, the Ammunition Accountability Act, the impending economic collapse of the U.S. government, the possibility of a constitutional convention, the North American Union, Obama's Universal Service Program, and the implementation of RFID, issues that are not limited to the Patriot Movement but are shared by a wide variety of political activists. In that last slide, you saw the United States being broken up into regions. In this slide, you see the North American Superhighway. They say people that talk about these things are terrorists. You need to watch them. That's what this report is indicating, and that's why they put those pictures in this. The award-winning film Zeitgeist is also mentioned as terrorist material, as you see in the very last slide. So it basically says if you oppose taxation, believe in the well-documented existence of a new world order, and are opposed to the obvious expansion of the federal government at the expense of the states, they basically marginalize people that believe that as violent extremists who are gunning for the police instead of the other way around. Now let's go back a couple years. Yeah, here we go. Anybody with that stuff? You got Don't Tread on Me. That was a flag during the Revolutionary War. Now they say it's militia. All that stuff. Distress sign, lower right, lower left of the screen. Distress sign, U.S. flag upside down. That's bad. All that's bad. And the last slide, you see what? American Russo's Freedom to Fascism, the Turner Diaries, which actually is racist material, and Zeitgeist. So you see, they lumped them together, but we're not done. They are on a campaign, folks. They are on a campaign. Here we go. This is during the Clinton administration. If you encounter, you are looking at the Phoenix, Arizona Task Force flyer. Next slide. Start with the left. Right-wing extremists, super patriots, defenders of the U.S. Constitution. They got hate groups, skinheads, KKK, all that down on the lower left. Skip over to the right side of the screen, and there's more. Now, leave it here, Bill. let them take a look. You can print this document out. You can print the document out. It came from Phoenix, Arizona, the Phoenix, Arizona Task Force flyer. But in the next report, several former guests of Outside the Box are now being listed by the ADLU as extremists. According to the not the ADLU, but the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, Joe Bannister, Tom Cryer, Pat Shannon, Dave Von Kleist, Jack McLam, Greg Dixon, Ted Gunderson, and Michael Batnerick are extremist speakers who will appear at the Three Pillars of Tyranny Conference in Florida. Now look at this graphic. What do you see? You see the racists on top, the racists on the bottom, and the patriots, people talking about the Constitution, the tax code, the takeover of America by the banks. They are the conspiracy theorists, and they are smack dab in the middle. Folks, it's about peer pressure. Your friends read this, and they see this is extremist behavior. You hear this stuff coming out of your mouth, and they're thinking that you're maybe moving in the direction of radical extremism, and they worry about you, and maybe in the future they report you. As we get turned into a more or less a snitch society. We already are one, but it's going to get worse. Now, let's talk about Dick Cheney. More revelations are coming out about the Bush administration. They already have admitted that Bush tried to kill the First Amendment, and now we see information about Cheney. This is coming from Seymour Hersh. Cheney ran SS-style political assassination group. We're talking about black op death squads that were set to go in our country that are still here because Obama never revoked Bush's executive orders. So this is still an ongoing operation to a certain degree. Award-winning investigative reporter Seymour Hersh dropped another bombshell this week when he revealed that former Vice President Dick Cheney had his own SS-style political assassination unit that reported directly to him. Hersh told a University of Minnesota audience on Tuesday. After 9/11, I haven't written about this yet, but the CIA was very deeply involved in domestic activities against people they thought to be enemies of the state. Without any legal authority for it, they haven't been called on it yet. Having said that, some of you know about the MH-6 model black helicopters in Portland. I just saw another one last Saturday. There's other information that's also pouring in, which we'll get into in a minute, about troop movement in the Hillsborough area. Information was sent in to me by a outside-the-box viewer that will remain anonymous. Hopefully in the future, if you're watching now, sir, you said you'd send me more. We need to see if we can get some photographs of some of the troop movements that are taking place in the Northwest. So take a look at these reports about these death squads and what they've been involved in on a global level. Delta forces, Navy SEAL teams, highly specialized special forces. But on the local level, they're indoctrinating more and more our local cops to work more and more with the military, even though a lot of them don't even realize it's happening. Washington State cops start liaison program with U.S. Army. This is also breaking. This is explosive news and information, folks. Fort Lewis and Lakewood police are working together to build a better understanding of what happens on the other side. Lakewood police are enlisting the help of Fort Lewis for times when city cops needs to cooperate with the Army, including when soldiers get in trouble off post. They were having issues with soldiers getting in bar fights at bars. They also had some issues with some murderers in Washington. There was also a story that I brought to you. Maybe I haven't brought it to you here. Maybe I've just talked about an Oracle. But there was a situation where up near Fort Lewis, or at Fort Lewis, or another one in Washington, they found a couple unconscious girls. One of them was dead, and the other one was just unconscious. They had to be taken to the hospital. They were only 15 or 16. Alcohol was involved, perhaps date rape, drugs, and so this actually took place on the base. The story has dropped like a hot potato. The last development I read was that they were watching one of the potential suspects who was described as being on suicide watch. He was described as being on suicide watch, whatever the heck that means. And so there's a lot of issues brewing right now with soldiers getting in trouble in Washington. So that's what they say this is for, but it's ironic considering the fact that thousands and thousands of troops are being distributed to military bases throughout the United States, and FEMA camps are also being maintained, constructed, and being pushed through legislation right now on the books. A brief couple updates on the economy. Hidden homeless, U.S. families living in motel rooms. This is, living in a motel room, folks, as some of you may know who've been on the road, it's not cheap. It's actually more expensive. So people that are poor seem to hurt even more. Kind of like with so many other things. By the way, the credit rating has been, for a lot of people, they've been losing their credit rating, but they've increased their expectations to get loans from 700 to 740. So people's credit rating is plummeting, but now instead of 700, they want 740. And so it really does make a whole lot of sense. It just depends on what your perspective is on the situation. That's why you got to get prepared, work together, communities, work on your own ability to be free on the inside. You're going to need this information more and more in the future to educate others as to why things are happening the way that they're happening. And sometimes solutions appear individually to us that sometimes may not be applicable to other people. We need to be establishing community gardens. We need to be establishing a lot of stuff. We need to be looking at local currencies. We need to have a number of groups, not just one. That's another reason why, if you're watching right now and you want to be a part of something, when I start doing my show live, then we start having discussions afterwards, start trying to do outreach to other groups. We need to have a facility that's not a coffee shop or a place where we can fit 40 people. So if you know of anything like that available, or if you want to volunteer on the show to help find stuff like that, do some scouting, it's needed at this time. I need to make this happen for you guys. We have to find a way to come together. I'm serious about this, and I'm going to find a way to make it happen for those that are looking for that and those that are listening right now and those that know me how serious I am, and I'm glad to have the help that I do have. Those of you that are out there watching, your help has been appreciated. And it's not always been easy, but I'm glad that we still are able to communicate with you right now, even though the future isn't here yet. We are trying to bring you as much information, I am, as I can, about what's going on. Now, Bill, in that other clip, let's get to the part where I'm talking with the police downtown about the issues at hand, and we're only going to show 2 minutes of that. We were demonstrating last Monday in downtown Portland, and we were talking about depleted uranium, and I was megaphoning, and this is after they told me to be quiet, so I was megaphoning and told me I was breaking the law, and I'm sitting here trying to talk to them, and they're trying to run away. And so we'll show a part of that in just a moment. Let's continue on with the other reports, though, for the time being, and then we'll go back to that in about 3 minutes' time. In Indiana, thousands of families line up at mall to get food handouts, and this is happening more and more. There's also all-time number of people on food stamps. Also, the official jobless rate is approaching 10%. Obama says a global stimulus package is needed. And I want to remind you that the Obama Deception has been released. You can view that at googlevideo.com. It is a 2-hour documentary exposing who Obama is, in particular less about Obama and more about the policies he's pushing, his actions, not his rhetoric, and the people that support Barack Obama, the financial interests in particular, the Wall Street oligarchy. And we will be talking with Pastor James David Manning from Harlem, New York. He's a preacher there. We'll be talking with the Reverend about his thoughts on Barack Obama. But I want to let you know what a viewer wrote in, because this is a local. This came into my email a couple days ago. Hey, Alex, I was driving to work this morning and never noticed this before. I lived in Hillsborough most of my life, but moved to Portland for the last couple of years and recently moved back to Hillsborough last month. I've never seen any sort of vehicles there before, so I don't know how long they have been there, but I'll investigate. There's a collection of about 100 camouflage Humvees and large camo trucks parked right off Tualatin Valley Highway in Hillsborough by the train tracks in a large field area just west of Murray Boulevard. I just saw it this morning. I usually take Highway 26 into Portland, so I will try to follow up with you later. I'll take some pictures and try to get some info because I've never seen this before. I know there's some sort of Army storage facility or base for reserves close to the Hillsborough Airport, but I've never seen any parked in this area or so many vehicles. All right, now at this time, and if you're watching, sir, yes, let's get that documentation. Let's take a look at it. And this is a small example of what a lot of us can do outreach, talk to people. And this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to talk to people coming up this Sunday. So if you'd like to drive down there, if you'd like to carpool, maybe we can get a camera person. Let's go down to the Capitol. I'm a little disappointed the protest isn't going to be in Portland, but nonetheless, the organizers of the local peace movement here in Portland feel it's significant that we galvanize our energies and focus, and I will yield to that, and I won't whine too much. But I'm sure there's going to be something going on in Portland, but make an effort if you can to carpool with others, share on the gas money to get down to Salem this upcoming 15th of March at 1 p.m. So we'll be back in just a few. Go ahead and roll it, Bill.
Dropping bombs off the coast of Oregon, depleted uranium over you. Causes birth defects, diabetes, obesity.
Hi, sir. Did you hear about what we were handing out? Did you even catch any of that? Nope. Here, Kathy. Not right now, man. They're going to be testing weapons of war in the Northwest. Oregon, California, Idaho, and California.
Depleted uranium munitions, it's a radioactive stuff they're dropping off the coast of Oregon. It's not good.
I know what it is.
Yeah.
Do you know it's effect on humans?
Yes, I was around it quite a bit.
Okay, so they're going to be using it here in the Northwest. Again, I want to show them other weapons as well as white, red, and yellow phosphorus. Okay. But it's okay.
Okay.
Bye, man.
It would be a better day if we could talk to actual humans, not machines and robots. That would be a great day.
He's a cyborg, technically, just robotic legs.
Humble from the spring line of New World Order Fashion 2009. Notice the snappy tactical vest accessorized with a lovely ski mask.
It hurts.
There's car moving, sir.
And 0 seconds.
We're talking about the, trying to keep it low. We're head out
Can't use an amplified
uranium.
You can't use an amplified device.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have a flyer? Okay.
Sure.
I heard you. Do you have a flyer?
So it's illegal to use an amplified device, period?
Yeah.
Period.
Flyer again about what we're talking
Really?
about. I understand. Okay. Acknowledge. You get a flyer. That's all I'm asking. Okay. Can I give you one?
We'll be able to show you this whole video, but we're going to keep playing it for a couple more minutes.
They're using depleted uranium munitions off the coast of Oregon. Radioactive waste.
Just 1 second, because I really think this is important.
It's our friend Kathy. She's trying to...
all that Navy stuff, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, we can say that.
Educate. This also ties in with those MH6 choppers that are flying up Portland, dropping guys down on buildings. We understand the police didn't know about that drill when it was happening. There were a lot of 911 calls that were made in October 2008. No, you don't care, do you? This is the stuff you should... Do you have this on film?
Yeah, I do.
Is you recording? All right. I mean, this is serious. We're trying to reach out to you guys. We put down the bullhorn.
You can talk to people as
Put
much
down
as
the bullhorn.
You can talk to people as
now
much as you like.
Right,
okay.
but we have other business to attend to.
other things to
Okay,
do.
but do you care?
Okay.
Officer, I have a question for you.
Right, you're bringing it. You're not allowed to have an opinion?
Yeah, officer, I have a question.
This is
about the law.
Right, we're not talking about the bullhorn now. It doesn't...
Can you please tell me the name of the ordinance or whatever it is that someone can't use an amplified device? I mean, yes, please.
All right, hey, we're gonna.
I had an officer tell me on a different occasion that I have to keep it below a certain decibel level, and that's what I'm curious about.
You can hear it more than 50 feet.
Oh, that's what it is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we might show you some more footage next week. Hopefully next week we'll have some footage to show you about of the protest Sunday. If somebody wants to get a hold of me, we can maybe carpool down there and maybe get a camera person. Briefly now, we're running out of time. Western military forces leaning inward, anticipating domestic unrest. We're already seeing, I don't want to say martial law, but a heavy federal police presence in Mexico. 50,000 troops have already been spread out through that country fighting the drug war. We've got announcements here that as the growing worldwide economic crisis deepens, military forces from Canada, the U.S., and the U.K. are preparing to meet angry citizens on the street. So CIA is involved domestically. In Canada, the military there has embarked on a wide-ranging plan to turn its reserve soldiers into focused units trained and equipped to respond to a nightmarish array of domestic threats, including terrorist dirty bomb attacks, biological, list goes on infinitum. And the next one, we've got MI5 in the UK. They're on red alert. They're anticipating the summer of rage. The summer of rage. Having said all that, we're going to omit the last two reports, and I got to mention a couple things. And I want to thank you all for watching this evening. We are looking for a meeting place, again, just to remind everybody. On a Wednesday night, we'd like to meet around 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. So if there's a stage somewhere in Portland that's not being used, it could be a bar, it could be a church, it could be any of those things, but coffee shops, libraries, not so much. So we're looking for a place to do that. Also, did my taxes recently. As you guys know, I don't run with a whole lot of dough. Got about $700, and it's important to me to establish my transportation needs. If you can help out with anything along those lines, I'm going to try to secure a pickup truck in decent shape for about $700 or $800. I figure my audience may have some information on that. Maybe someone wants to talk over email about that. So if you know anything about that, let me know. Also, got to make these announcements now. I got some money together to get a root canal done. I'm not insured. If you know of a good dentist locally in Southeast that I can go to where they do extractions, root canals, things like that, let me know where that is. I just went to a dentist the other day, wasting my time getting a checkup when all they do is maintenance work. So I got to reschedule somewhere else. So I got to go looking in Portland. If you know of something, let me know. And the last thing, volunteering. You want to help out booking guests. You want to help out on this show. You want to help out in some way. You want to help out on camera this Sunday at the protest at the Capitol as we protest the deployment of U.S. troops, the National Guard to Iraq? Well, email me. That information's at my website, alex_ansary@hotmail.com. Last but not least, hey, check out Paul's lecture about 9/11. Educate yourself if you still have questions, and take the time to meet other activists. And that's why I want to do these groups. That's why I'm passionate about this, because I like facilitating something where I bring people together. I've brought a lot of people together. So it's less about me, myself, my name, or my website, but about the message and what we're doing. And with all these things manifesting, the economy melting down, believe me, this information will serve us in the future. Information about surviving and food storage and community rebuilding, alternative home building, all those different things that are solutions and positive reactions to this crisis. That's what we have to keep our eye on. We have to keep our eye on the golden prize. We will be back, my friends, next week. Until that time, I am Alex Ansary, reminding you, the path to the ultimate truth still starts within. Good night.